The morning sun cast long shadows across the barren landscape of Afghanistan's Helmand province as Lieutenant Commander Jake Morrison studied the intelligence briefing one final time. His weathered hands, marked by countless missions, traced the route on the tactical map spread across the makeshift table in their forward operating base. The mission seemed straightforward enough on paper, but Morrison had learned during his 12 years with SEAL Team 6 that nothing in this country ever went according to plan. Simple: extract and eliminate. Morrison muttered to his team assembled around him in the cramped briefing tent. The 6 elite operators represented some of America's finest military assets, each man handpicked for this critical operation. Their target was Hassan al-Kazemi, a high-value Taliban commander responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces throughout the region. Intelligence indicated he would be meeting with local insurgent leaders in a compound near the village of Marja, approximately 15 kilometers from their current position. Petty Officer First Class Marcus Chun, the team's communications specialist, adjusted his headset and looked up from his equipment. "Sir, satellite imagery confirms the target location. Compound shows minimal activity, but thermal readings suggest at least 8 to 10 individuals inside the main building." Chen's technical expertise had kept the team connected and alive through dozens of operations across 3 deployments. Beside him sat Chief Petty Officer David Rodriguez, the team's medic and second-in-command. His steady demeanor and quick thinking under pressure had earned him the respect of every operator he had served alongside. Rodriguez had pulled wounded teammates from impossible situations and somehow managed to keep them breathing until extraction arrived. Today, he carried his standard medical kit along with enough ammunition to level a small building. The team's demolitions expert, Petty Officer Second Class Tommy "Boom" Sullivan, methodically checked his explosive charges for the 3rd time that morning. Sullivan's nickname had been earned through years of precisely placed explosives that could breach any door or eliminate any obstacle. His red hair and infectious grin masked a calculating mind that could turn everyday materials into devastating weapons when the situation demanded it. Petty Officer First Class Anthony Williams served as the team's intelligence analyst and linguist. His ability to speak fluent Pashto and Dari had proven invaluable during previous operations, often providing crucial cultural context that meant the difference between mission success and catastrophic failure. Williams had grown up in Detroit before joining the Navy, but his natural aptitude for languages had taken him far from those urban streets. The final member of their team, Petty Officer Second Class Ryan "Ghost" Patterson, had earned his nickname through an almost supernatural ability to move unseen and unheard through hostile territory. Patterson's reconnaissance skills and marksmanship had saved the team countless times during their deployment. His quiet nature and intense focus made him the perfect point man for dangerous operations. Morrison folded the map and looked each man in the eye. "Gentlemen, this operation has been designated Priority 1 by CENTCOM. Hassan al-Kazemi has been directly linked to the roadside bombing that killed 18 Marines last month near Sanjin. Intelligence believes he's planning something bigger, possibly targeting the provincial capital. We cannot let that happen." The team began their final equipment checks as Morrison continued the briefing. Each operator carried specialized gear tailored to their role, but all shared common elements: advanced night vision equipment, encrypted communications devices, and enough firepower to engage a small army if necessary. Their weapons had been zeroed and tested repeatedly during their time at the forward base, and each man knew his equipment as intimately as his own heartbeat. Insertion will be via helicopter at Landing Zone Alpha, approximately 2 kilometers south of the target compound, Morrison explained, pointing to a clear area on the satellite imagery. "We'll move on foot under cover of darkness and establish overwatch positions by 0400 hours. The compound sits in a natural depression surrounded by low hills, which should provide adequate concealment for our approach." Chun raised his hand slightly. "Sir, what's our extraction plan if things go sideways?" "The compound is pretty isolated, and it's a long walk back to friendly territory if the helicopter gets compromised." Morrison nodded, appreciating the question. "Excellent point, Chun. Primary extraction remains the same landing zone where we insert. However, If that becomes compromised, we have a secondary extraction point at these coordinates. He marked a spot on the map with his finger. It's an old Soviet-era bridge about 3 kilometers northeast of the target. The river there is shallow enough to ford if necessary, and the elevated position gives us good defensive options. Williams studied the topographical features around their target area. Sir, what do we know about local population in that area? Any civilians we need to be concerned about during the operation? The question highlighted one of the most challenging aspects of their mission. Operating in populated areas always carried the risk of civilian casualties, something that could turn a successful military operation into a propaganda victory for their enemies. Morrison had spent considerable time reviewing intelligence reports about the local population near their target. Intelligence indicates the immediate area around the compound is largely uninhabited, Morrison replied. The nearest village is about a kilometer to the east, but most residents have relocated due to recent Taliban activity in the region. However, we maintain our standard rules of engagement. Positive identification is required before engaging any target, and civilian safety remains our top priority. Rodriguez checked his medical supplies one final time. What about enemy strength estimates? 8 to 10 in the compound seems light for a high-value target like Hassan. Morrison's expression grew more serious. That's our primary concern, Chief. Hassan didn't survive this long by being careless. Intelligence believes he's deliberately keeping his security footprint small to avoid detection. But we should expect at least some external security that won't show up on thermal imaging. Assume there are sentries positioned around the compound perimeter. Sullivan finished securing his demolition charges and looked up. Sir, what's the plan if Hassan isn't in the compound when we arrive? Do we wait for him or abort the mission? The question touched on one of the most difficult aspects of special operations, the balance between mission success and operational security. Waiting for a target to appear increased the chances of detection and compromise, but aborting a mission meant losing potentially their only opportunity to eliminate a high-value target. We have a 6-hour window from insertion to mandatory extraction, Morrison explained. If Hassan hasn't appeared by that time, we'll reassess based on available intelligence. However, our sources indicate he's already en route to the meeting, so we should have positive identification within the first 2 hours of the operation. Patterson, who had remained silent throughout most of the briefing, finally spoke up. What about air support if we need it? Are there any fast movers on station during our operation window? Morrison consulted his notes. We'll have a Predator drone overhead for the duration of the operation, providing real-time intelligence and limited fire support if absolutely necessary. Additionally, there's an Apache helicopter on 15-minute standby at Forward Operating Base Jackson, about 20 kilometers south of our position. However, remember that calling in air support compromises operational security and potentially alerts every Taliban fighter within 50 kilometers to our presence. The team spent the next hour conducting detailed equipment checks and reviewing contingency plans for various scenarios that might develop during their operation. Each man verified that his night vision equipment functioned properly, that his weapons were clean and properly zeroed, and that his communications gear operated on the correct frequencies. Chun tested the satellite communication equipment that would keep them connected to their command center throughout the operation. The advanced encryption systems ensured that even if their transmissions were intercepted, enemy forces would be unable to decode their contents or determine their location. Rodriguez organized his medical supplies according to a system he had developed over years of combat operations. His kit contained everything from basic bandages to advanced surgical instruments, allowing him to treat everything from minor wounds to life-threatening injuries in the field. Sullivan double-checked each of his explosive charges, ensuring that detonators were properly secured and that backup firing systems were operational. His demolition kit included both precision charges for breaching doors and larger explosives capable of destroying entire structures if the mission required it. Williams reviewed his intelligence files one final time, memorizing details about the local terrain, population, and recent Taliban activity in the area. His linguistic skills would prove invaluable if they encountered local civilians or needed to conduct interrogations during their operation. Patterson cleaned his sniper rifle and verified that his scope was properly calibrated for the expected engagement distances. His marksmanship skills would provide the team with long-range precision fire support and the ability to eliminate threats before they could endanger the rest of the team. As the sun began to set over the Afghan landscape, Morrison gathered his team for a final briefing. The orange light filtered through the canvas walls of their briefing tent, casting everything in a warm glow that seemed almost peaceful despite the dangerous mission that lay ahead. Gentlemen, in 4 hours we'll be airborne and heading into hostile territory. Morrison began, his voice carrying the weight of command responsibility. Each of you is trained extensively for this type of operation, and I have complete confidence in your abilities. However, I want to emphasize that this mission is unlike anything we've attempted during this deployment. The team listened intently as their commander continued. Hassan al-Kazemi is not just another Taliban commander. He's intelligent, well-trained, and extremely dangerous. Intelligence reports suggest he may have received training from foreign advisors, possibly Iranian Quds force operatives. This means we should expect a higher level of tactical sophistication than we've encountered in previous operations. Morrison paused to let this information sink in before continuing. Additionally, recent intercepts suggest that Taliban forces in this area have been expecting increased coalition activity. They may have prepared defensive positions or established early warning networks that could compromise our approach. We need to be prepared for the possibility that our insertion has been detected and that enemy forces are waiting for us. The sobering reality of their situation settled over the team like a heavy blanket. Each man had participated in dozens of combat operations during their careers, but every mission carried unique risks and challenges that could prove fatal if not properly addressed. Shin spoke first. Sir, have there been any changes to our communication protocols for this operation? If the enemy is expecting us, they might be monitoring standard military frequencies. Morrison nodded approvingly. Excellent question. We'll be operating on alternate frequencies during this mission, and all communications will be limited to essential traffic only. Chun, you'll maintain contact with our command center every 30 minutes after insertion, but use brevity codes only unless we encounter an emergency situation. Rodriguez raised another concern. What about extraction procedures if we take casualties? The terrain around the compound doesn't look suitable for helicopter landing, especially if we're under fire. The question highlighted one of the most dangerous aspects of special operations, the challenge of extracting wounded personnel from hostile territory. Medical evacuations required secure landing zones and often involved exposing rescue aircraft to enemy fire, creating additional casualties and potentially compromising the entire operation. Chief, you're absolutely right about the terrain limitations, Morrison acknowledged. If we take casualties during the operation, primary extraction will be at the original landing zone 2 kilometers south of the target. However, if that becomes compromised, we'll move to the secondary extraction point at the old bridge. The river valley there provides better cover and concealment for extraction aircraft. Sullivan raised his hand. Sir, what are our rules of engagement regarding the compound structure itself? Are we authorized to destroy the building if necessary? The question touched on important considerations regarding evidence preservation and intelligence gathering. Destroying enemy facilities could eliminate valuable intelligence materials, but it might also be necessary to prevent enemy forces from using the compound for continued operations. Our primary objective is the elimination of Hassan al-Kazemi, Morrison replied. However, intelligence has requested that we preserve any documents or electronic equipment found in the compound if possible. Sullivan, you're authorized to use explosives to breach entrances or eliminate defensive positions, but try to avoid destroying the entire structure unless absolutely necessary for mission success or team safety. Williams looked up from his intelligence files. Sir, what about local security forces? Do we have any information about Afghan National Army or police units operating in the area? The question was crucial for avoiding friendly fire incidents that could prove catastrophic for both the mission and international relations. Coordination with local security forces was always challenging due to concerns about intelligence leaks and varying levels of training and equipment among Afghan units. Intelligence indicates no scheduled ANA operations in our area of operations during our mission window, Morrison answered. However, We should remain alert for the possibility of unscheduled patrols or checkpoints. Williams, if we encounter local security forces, you'll handle all communication using your language skills and appropriate identification protocols. Patterson finished his final weapon checks and looked up at his commander. Sir, what's our contingency plan if Hassan isn't in the compound, but we encounter other high-value targets during the operation? The question reflected the fluid nature of special operations, where unexpected opportunities and threats could emerge without warning. Rigid mission parameters often had to be adjusted based on developing situations in the field. Good point, Ghost, Morrison replied. Our primary target remains Hassan al-Kazemi, but we're authorized to engage other confirmed Taliban commanders if the opportunity presents itself. However, remember that our extraction timeline doesn't change, and we cannot compromise operational security for secondary targets. As the final briefing concluded, each team member began making personal preparations for the mission ahead. Some wrote letters home that would only be sent if they failed to return. Others spent time in quiet reflection or prayer, preparing themselves mentally for the challenges they would face in the darkness of the Afghan night. Morrison walked outside the briefing tent and looked up at the clear star-filled sky above their forward operating base. The same stars that had guided countless warriors throughout human history now looked down on 6 American operators preparing to risk their lives in service to their country. In a few hours, they would be deep in enemy territory, relying on their training, their equipment, and each other to complete their mission and return home safely. The weight of command responsibility settled heavily on Morrison's shoulders as he considered all the variables that could affect their mission success. Weather conditions, enemy strength, equipment reliability, and dozens of other factors could mean the difference between triumph and disaster. However, he had complete confidence in his team's abilities and their shared commitment to completing their mission regardless of the obstacles they might encounter. As midnight approached, the team began final preparations for their helicopter insertion into hostile territory, unaware that their carefully planned operation would soon encounter complications that would test every aspect of their training and determination. The next few hours would prove to be among the most challenging of their military careers, requiring courage, skill, and teamwork beyond anything they had previously experienced. In the distance, the sound of helicopter rotors began to echo across the desert landscape, signaling that their insertion aircraft was approaching and that their dangerous mission was about to begin. Each man checked his equipment one final time, knowing that in the heat of combat, there would be no opportunity to correct any oversights or equipment failures that might compromise their effectiveness or their survival. The Black Hawk helicopter cut through the darkness like a mechanical predator, its rotors beating a steady rhythm against the cold Afghan night air. Morrison and his team sat in the cargo compartment, each man lost in his own thoughts as they flew toward their insertion point. The aircraft's crew chief, a veteran sergeant with thousands of flight hours over hostile territory, monitored radio communications while keeping watch for any signs of enemy activity below. Through his night vision goggles, Morrison could see the rugged landscape passing beneath them at nearly 200 feet above ground level. The terrain was a mixture of rocky hills, dry riverbeds, and scattered vegetation that provided perfect concealment for insurgent forces. This was exactly the type of environment where Taliban fighters had proven most effective against coalition forces, using their intimate knowledge of the local geography to stage ambushes and then disappear into the wilderness. Chun monitored their tactical communications network, ensuring that all team members remained connected and that their command center could track their progress toward the target area. The sophisticated encryption systems built into their radio equipment would prevent enemy forces from intercepting their transmissions, but they also had to maintain communication discipline to avoid revealing their position through excessive radio traffic. Rodriguez checked his medical equipment one final time, ensuring that critical supplies were easily accessible if casualties occurred during their operation. His experience treating wounded teammates under fire had taught him that the difference between life and death often came down to having the right medical supplies immediately available when they were needed most desperately. Sullivan reviewed the compound layout on his tablet computer, studying the building structure and identifying the best locations for placing explosive charges if breaching operations became necessary. His demolition expertise would be crucial if the team encountered fortified positions or needed to create new access points during their assault on the compound. Williams studied intelligence photographs of their target, Hassan al-Kazemi, memorizing facial features and other identifying characteristics that would help ensure positive identification in low-light conditions. His linguistic skills would also prove valuable if they needed to communicate with local civilians or conduct interrogations during their operation. Patterson adjusted his sniper rifle scope settings for the expected engagement distances around the target compound. His marksmanship abilities would provide the team with precision fire support and the capability to eliminate threats at ranges beyond the effectiveness of their standard assault weapons. The helicopter crew chief held up 5 fingers, indicating they were 5 minutes from their insertion point. Morrison activated his team's communication network and spoke quietly into his headset microphone. 5 minutes to insertion. Final equipment checks and prepare for fast rope deployment. Each team member quickly verified that his equipment was properly secured and that his weapon was ready for immediate use upon reaching the ground. The fast rope insertion technique would get them on the ground quickly, but it also left them vulnerable during the descent if enemy forces were waiting in the landing zone. The landscape below began to change as they approached their target area. The terrain became more mountainous, with deeper valleys and steeper ridges that would provide excellent defensive positions for Taliban forces. Morrison could see why intelligence had chosen this area for Hassan's meeting location. It was remote, easily defended, and offered multiple escape routes if the compound came under attack. Chen received an update from their command center through his satellite communication equipment. Sir, command reports no changes to intelligence regarding the target area. Thermal imaging from the Predator drone confirms 8 to 10 individuals in the main compound building, with no visible external security positions. The information was reassuring, but Morrison knew that thermal imaging had limitations, especially in terrain like this where natural rock formations could mask heat signatures. He had learned during previous operations that relying too heavily on technology could create dangerous blind spots that enemy forces could exploit. Rodriguez spoke up through the team communication network. Sir, I'm seeing some unusual weather moving in from the west. Looks like cloud cover might affect our night vision effectiveness during the operation. The observation was concerning because their tactical advantage depended heavily on superior night vision capabilities that allowed them to see and engage targets before enemy forces could detect their presence. Reduced visibility could level the playing field and make their operation significantly more dangerous. Sullivan pointed toward the ground below them. Check out those rock formations around the compound. Natural defensive positions that could conceal a lot more fighters than thermal imaging might detect. His comment reinforced Morrison's concerns about the intelligence picture they had received. Taliban fighters were experts at using natural terrain features to mask their presence from technological surveillance systems, and this area provided abundant opportunities for concealment. Williams studied the approach routes to their target through his night vision equipment. The vegetation patterns looked different from what we saw in the satellite imagery, more dense than expected, which could work for or against us, depending on how it affects our movement. Patterson made final adjustments to his sniper rifle and spoke quietly into his microphone. Sir, I'm noticing some elevation differences that weren't apparent in the aerial photography. Might affect my engagement angles once we establish overwatch positions. The helicopter crew chief held up 1 finger, indicating they were 1 minute from insertion. Morrison could feel the aircraft beginning to slow down as they approached landing zone Alpha. Through the open cabin door, he could see their insertion point, a small clearing surrounded by low hills approximately 2 kilometers south of their target compound. 30 seconds to insertion, the crew chief announced through their communication network. Weather update indicates increasing cloud cover moving through the area. Visibility may be reduced within the next 2 hours. Morrison acknowledged the weather report while considering how it might affect their operation timeline. Reduced visibility could provide additional concealment for their movement toward the target, but it would also make target identification more difficult and potentially compromise their extraction if cloud cover interfered with helicopter operations. The Black Hawk helicopters settled into a stable hover approximately 40 feet above the landing zone as the crew chief deployed the fast rope insertion system. Morrison could see the ground below through his night vision goggles, noting the rocky terrain and scattered vegetation that would provide concealment during their approach to the target compound. Go, 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 Morrison commanded as he grabbed the rope and began his descent toward the ground. The fast rope burned through his gloved hands as he controlled his descent rate, landing softly on the rocky Afghan soil with his weapon ready for immediate use. His team members followed in rapid succession, each man touching down within seconds of the previous operator. Chen landed and immediately began establishing communication with their command center while scanning the surrounding terrain for any signs of enemy activity. His radio equipment quickly locked onto the satellite network, providing them with secure communications capability and confirming that their insertion had been successfully completed. Rodriguez touched down and took up a defensive position while conducting a quick visual scan of the landing zone perimeter. His medical training had taught him to assess potential casualty evacuation routes and identify covered positions where wounded team members could receive treatment if necessary. Sullivan landed with his demolition equipment and immediately began moving toward the rally point that Morrison had designated during their briefing. His explosive charges were carefully secured to prevent accidental detonation during their movement across the rough terrain toward their target. Williams completed his descent and activated his night vision equipment while conducting a systematic scan of the surrounding hills for any signs of human activity. His intelligence training had taught him to look for subtle indicators of enemy presence that might not be apparent to other team members. Patterson landed last, his sniper rifle secured across his back during the descent, but ready for immediate deployment if threats emerged. His marksmanship training had developed his ability to quickly identify and engage targets at various distances and lighting conditions. The helicopter departed immediately after the last team member reached the ground, its rotor noise fading quickly as it flew toward a safe distance from their operational area. Morrison gathered his team at the predetermined rally point and conducted a quick head count to ensure that all personnel and equipment had been successfully inserted. Sound off by call signs, Morrison whispered into his microphone. Each team member responded in sequence, confirming that they were uninjured and ready to begin movement toward their target. The insertion had been completed without incident, but they were now deep in enemy territory with limited support options if their operation encountered unexpected complications. Chun established contact with their command center and received confirmation that the Predator drone was on station and providing overwatch for their operation. The unmanned aircraft carried sophisticated surveillance equipment that would help identify threats and monitor Taliban activity in the area around their target compound. Morrison studied his GPS navigation equipment and confirmed their exact position relative to the target compound. The route they would follow had been carefully planned to avoid known Taliban patrol areas and take advantage of natural terrain features that would provide concealment during their approach. Rodriguez checked the team's medical equipment and ensured that each member carried sufficient supplies for treating casualties if their operation encountered resistance. His experience in previous combat operations had taught him that medical emergencies often occurred when teams were far from immediate support. Sullivan examined the terrain between their current position and the target compound, identifying natural obstacles that might require explosive charges to clear and potential defensive positions where Taliban forces might attempt to establish ambush positions. Williams reviewed his intelligence materials one final time, studying photographs and maps that would help him navigate the cultural and linguistic challenges they might encounter if their operation required interaction with local civilians or captured enemy personnel. Patterson began assembling his sniper rifle and configuring his scope for the terrain and lighting conditions they would encounter during their approach to the target. His precision marksmanship would be crucial if they needed to eliminate sentries or provide covering fire for the assault team. The team began their movement toward the target compound, maintaining tactical spacing and using hand signals to communicate as they navigated the rocky terrain. Morrison led the formation, using his GPS equipment and night vision goggles to follow their predetermined route, while avoiding areas that might expose them to enemy observation. Chun monitored their communications equipment and maintained periodic contact with their command center, providing location updates and receiving intelligence reports about enemy activity in their operational area. His technical expertise ensured that they remained connected to their support network throughout their mission. Rodriguez followed behind Chun, continuously scanning for potential medical threats while carrying additional ammunition for the team's weapons. His dual role as medic and rifleman required constant awareness of both tactical situations and potential casualty scenarios. Sullivan moved in the middle of their formation, his demolition equipment carefully secured but ready for immediate deployment if they encountered obstacles or fortified positions. His explosive expertise would be essential if their assault required breaching operations or defensive demolitions. Williams maintained his position near the rear of their formation, using his intelligence training to monitor their backtrail for signs of pursuit while studying the terrain ahead for indicators of enemy activity. His linguistic abilities would prove crucial if they encountered local civilians during their operation. Patterson brought up the rear of their formation, his sniper rifle ready for immediate deployment, while he provided overwatch for the team's movement. His marksmanship skills and tactical awareness made him the perfect choice for their tailgunner position. The terrain proved more challenging than their intelligence briefings had suggested. Rocky outcroppings and unexpected ravines forced them to modify their planned routes several times, adding precious minutes to their approach timeline. Morrison began to worry that they might not reach their overwatch positions before the target meeting was scheduled to begin. Chun received an updated intelligence report through his satellite communication system. "Sir, command reports increased radio chatter in the target area, possibly indicating preparation for the meeting, but could also suggest awareness of our presence." The information created a tactical dilemma for Morrison. Increased enemy communications could indicate that Hassan al-Kazemi was preparing for his meeting with local insurgent leaders, which would support their mission timeline. However, it could also mean that Taliban forces had detected their insertion and were preparing defensive measures. Rodriguez identified a natural choke point ahead of their position, where the terrain funneled their route between two rocky ridges. "Sir, this looks like a natural ambush position. Recommend we take time to clear it properly before proceeding." The suggestion was tactically sound, but it would further delay their approach to the target compound. Morrison had to balance the risk of walking into an ambush against the possibility of arriving too late to intercept their target. Sullivan studied the rocky terrain around the choke point through his night vision equipment. "I could place charges to create an alternate route if necessary, but the explosions would definitely compromise our operational security." Williams listened carefully to ambient sounds from the surrounding terrain, using his training to identify any unusual noises that might indicate enemy presence. "Sir, I'm not detecting any human sound from the ridgelines, but the wind conditions are making it difficult to hear clearly." Patterson set up his sniper rifle and scanned the ridgelines through his scope, looking for any signs of enemy fighters or equipment. "No visual contact from my position, but there are plenty of concealed positions where hostiles could be hiding." Morrison made the decision to proceed through the choke point while maintaining heightened alert status. The team moved carefully through the narrow passage, weapons ready, and senses alert for any signs of enemy activity. The rocky walls on either side created natural echo chambers that amplified every sound, making stealth movement extremely challenging. As they emerged from the choke point, Chun received another communication from their command center. "Sir, Predator drone reports thermal signature changes at the target compound. Appears to be increased activity around the main building." The information suggested that Hassan al-Kazemi might be arriving for his scheduled meeting, which was crucial intelligence for timing their assault. However, increased activity could also mean additional security personnel or preparation for defensive measures. Morrison checked his watch and calculated their remaining distance to the target compound. They were behind schedule, but still within acceptable parameters for completing their mission successfully. The challenging terrain had slowed their progress, but they maintained the element of surprise that was crucial for their operational success. Rodriguez pointed toward a ridge line ahead of their position. "Sir, That elevation provides excellent overwatch positions for the compound, but will be exposed during our approach. The observation highlighted another tactical challenge they faced. The best positions for observing and engaging their target also offered the least concealment during their approach, creating vulnerability windows that enemy forces could exploit. Sullivan identified several potential defensive positions along their route. Multiple locations where hostiles could establish interlocking fields of fire. We need to be ready for contact during our final approach. Williams studied the cultural landscape around their target area. Sir, this area has historical significance for local tribal groups. Taliban might be using cultural connections to build support networks that aren't visible in our intelligence reports. Patterson completed his reconnaissance of the final approach routes. Multiple engagement angles available from the overwatch positions, but we'll need to coordinate fields of fire carefully to avoid fraternal casualties during the assault. The team continued their movement toward the target compound. Each man focused on his specialized responsibilities while maintaining awareness of the overall tactical situation. They were now less than 1 kilometer from their target, entering the most dangerous phase of their operation, where any mistake could prove fatal for the entire team. Morrison felt the familiar tension that preceded combat operations, a mixture of anticipation, focus, and controlled aggression that had kept him alive through countless dangerous missions. His team was among the best trained and equipped in the world, but they were now operating deep in enemy territory, where superior numbers and intimate knowledge of local terrain gave Taliban forces significant advantages. The success of their mission would depend on speed, precision, and teamwork during the critical minutes when they engaged Hassan al-Kazemi and his security forces. Every aspect of their training and preparation would be tested as they approached the climactic moment of their operation. As they moved through the darkness toward their target, none of them could have anticipated the unexpected complications that would soon transform their carefully planned operation into a desperate fight for survival in the unforgiving landscape of Afghanistan. The compound materialized through their night vision goggles like a fortress emerging from the Afghan darkness. Morrison's team had reached their overwatch positions just as the first hints of dawn began to creep across the eastern horizon. The main building sat in a natural depression surrounded by low hills, exactly as their intelligence briefings had described, but something felt wrong about the tactical picture they were observing. Morrison settled into his command position behind a cluster of large rocks that provided excellent concealment while offering clear views of the target compound. Through his night vision scope, he could see the main building and several smaller outbuildings arranged around a central courtyard. Thermal imaging from the Predator drone had confirmed human activity inside the main structure, but the external security arrangements appeared minimal. Chun established his communication position approximately 50 meters to Morrison's left, where he could maintain contact with their command center while providing fire support if their operation encountered resistance. His advanced radio equipment had locked onto the satellite network, ensuring secure communications throughout their mission timeline. Rodriguez took up a defensive position that allowed him to provide medical support for the team while maintaining clear fields of fire toward the compound. His dual role as medic and rifleman required constant awareness of both tactical developments and potential casualty scenarios that might develop during their assault. Sullivan positioned himself near a natural depression that would provide excellent concealment for his demolition equipment, while offering clear access routes to the compound if breaching operations became necessary. His explosive charges were armed and ready for immediate deployment against fortified positions or structural obstacles. Williams found cover behind a rocky outcropping where he could observe the cultural dynamics around the compound while providing intelligence support for the assault team. His linguistic skills would be crucial if they encountered local civilians or needed to conduct interrogations during their operation. Patterson established his sniper position on a ridge approximately 300 meters from the compound, where his precision marksmanship could provide overwatch and long-range fire support for the assault team. His rifle scope was calibrated for the distance and lighting conditions, ensuring accurate engagement of targets at various ranges. Morrison studied the compound through his binoculars, noting details that hadn't been apparent in their satellite imagery. The main building appeared to be constructed from local stone and mud brick with thick walls that would provide excellent protection from small arms fire. Several windows faced the courtyard, but they were small and positioned high on the walls, suggesting defensive considerations had influenced the architectural design. Chun monitored communications traffic on Taliban frequencies, using electronic surveillance equipment to intercept enemy radio transmissions in the area. His technical expertise with signals intelligence had proven valuable during previous operations for identifying enemy strength and intentions before combat engagement. "Sir, I'm picking up increased radio chatter from multiple locations around our operational area," Chun whispered through their communication network. "Sounds like coordination between different groups, but the encryption is too sophisticated for real-time translation." The information was concerning because it suggested a higher level of organization and preparation than their intelligence briefings had indicated. Taliban forces typically used simple communication methods that were easily intercepted and decoded, but sophisticated encryption systems implied foreign technical assistance or advanced planning. Rodriguez scanned the surrounding terrain through his night vision equipment, looking for signs of additional enemy positions that might not be visible from their current observation points. His medical training had taught him to assess potential casualty evacuation routes and defensive positions where wounded team members could receive treatment under fire. Multiple concealed positions around the compound perimeter, Rodriguez reported quietly. Natural rock formations that could hide significant numbers of hostiles without showing up on thermal imaging. Sullivan examined the compound structure through his scope, identifying potential weak points where explosive charges could create breach points or eliminate defensive advantages. His demolition expertise had developed his ability to analyze building construction and determine the most effective placement of charges for various tactical objectives. Main building construction looks more robust than intelligence suggested, Sullivan observed. Walls appear thick enough to stop rifle rounds, and window positions indicate defensive design considerations. Williams listened carefully to ambient sound from the compound area, using his cultural knowledge to interpret activity patterns that might indicate preparation for Hassan al-Kazemi's arrival. His intelligence training had taught him to recognize subtle behavioral indicators that could reveal enemy intentions and timeline. Hearing what sounds like vehicle movement in the distance, Williams reported. "Could be our target approaching for the scheduled meeting, but movement patterns seem inconsistent with normal civilian traffic." Patterson adjusted his rifle scope and conducted systematic surveillance of potential sniper positions around the compound perimeter. His marksmanship training had developed his ability to identify locations where enemy marksmen might establish firing positions against assault teams. "Sir, I'm identifying several elevated positions that would provide excellent sniper nests for defending the compound," Patterson whispered. "Recommend we clear those areas before beginning our assault." Morrison processed the information from his team members while considering how the developing intelligence picture might affect their operational timeline. The compound appeared more heavily defended than expected, and the sophisticated communication activity suggested enemy forces with better training and equipment than typical Taliban units. Chun received an updated intelligence report through his satellite communication system. "Sir, command reports that Hassan al-Kazemi's vehicle convoy was observed approximately 10 kilometers from our location, moving toward the compound on schedule." The information confirmed that their primary target was approaching, which was crucial for mission success, but also meant that enemy security measures would be at maximum alert levels. Hassan had survived multiple assassination attempts by maintaining strict operational security and employing sophisticated counter-surveillance techniques. Rodriguez identified several natural positions where casualties could be treated if their assault encountered heavy resistance. "Sir, multiple covered positions available for casualty collection, but extraction routes are limited if we take wounded during the operation." The observation highlighted one of the most dangerous aspects of their mission, the challenge of evacuating wounded personnel from hostile territory while maintaining operational security. Medical emergencies could compromise the entire team if proper contingency plans weren't established and rehearsed. Sullivan studied the vehicle approaches to the compound, noting defensive obstacles and potential ambush positions that enemy forces might use to channel attacking forces into prepared killing zones. His tactical expertise had been developed through years of studying enemy defensive techniques and developing countermeasures. Compound approaches are naturally channeled by terrain features, Sullivan reported. Limited routes for vehicle access, which works in our favor for controlling enemy reinforcement, but also restricts our extraction options. Williams detected changes in the acoustic signature from the compound area, suggesting increased activity levels that might indicate preparation for Hassan's arrival or awareness of their surveillance presence. His intelligence training had taught him to recognize subtle indicators of enemy alertness and preparation. Activity patterns inside the compound are changing, Williams observed. Could indicate normal preparation for the meeting, but movement patterns suggest heightened security awareness. Patterson completed his survey of potential enemy sniper positions and began calculating engagement sequences if multiple targets appeared simultaneously. His precision marksmanship training had developed his ability to prioritize targets and execute rapid engagement sequences under combat conditions. Multiple high-priority targets visible through thermal imaging, Patterson reported. Recommend coordinated engagement sequence to prevent enemy forces from establishing effective defensive positions. Morrison checked his watch and noted that Hassan's convoy should arrive within the next 30 minutes based on their intelligence timeline. The team was in excellent position to execute their assault, but the enemy appeared more prepared and better organized than expected. Chin intercepted additional radio traffic from Taliban frequencies, noting increased coordination between multiple units in their operational area. Sir, communication patterns suggest enemy forces are coordinating activities across a wider area than we anticipated. Possible indication of prepared defensive measures. The information reinforced Morrison's growing concern that their operation might have been compromised or that Taliban forces had improved their security procedures significantly since their last intelligence assessment. Either possibility would make their mission considerably more dangerous and complex. Rodriguez observed movement around the compound perimeter that wasn't visible through thermal imaging systems. Sir, detecting subtle movement patterns that suggest concealed personnel in prepared positions. Enemy strength estimates may be significantly understated. Sullivan identified additional defensive obstacles around the compound that hadn't been apparent in their aerial reconnaissance. Natural and constructed barriers that would channel assault forces into predetermined engagement areas. Compound defenses are more sophisticated than intelligence indicated. Williams noted changes in communication patterns from the compound area that suggested enemy forces were implementing heightened security measures. Radio discipline improving significantly over the past 15 minutes. Possible indication that our target has arrived or that security forces are aware of external threats. Patterson observed thermal signatures that indicated additional personnel moving into defensive positions around the compound perimeter. Enemy strength appears to be increasing beyond original estimates. Multiple fighting positions being occupied by personnel who weren't visible during initial surveillance. Morrison realized that their intelligence picture had been incomplete or compromised, leaving his team facing a more dangerous and complex tactical situation than they had prepared for. The enemy appeared to be better trained, better equipped, and more numerous than expected. Chin received an urgent communication from their command center through the satellite network. Sir, command reports that Hassan's convoy has arrived at the compound. Multiple vehicles with security escorts, significantly larger than intelligence projections. The information confirmed that their primary target was now present, but it also meant that enemy forces would be at maximum strength and alert levels. Hassan traveled with sophisticated security arrangements that had successfully protected him from previous assassination attempts by coalition forces. Rodriguez noted increased activity around potential casualty evacuation routes as enemy forces established additional defensive positions. Sir, enemy forces are systematically occupying positions that would interfere with casualty evacuation. Possible indication they're prepared for assault operations. The observation suggested that Taliban forces had improved their tactical understanding and were implementing defensive measures specifically designed to counter special operations techniques. This level of preparation indicated training by experienced military advisors, possibly foreign special operations personnel. Sullivan identified explosive devices that appeared to have been recently placed around the compound approaches. Sir, detecting what appeared to be improvised explosive devices along primary assault routes. Compound defenses include prepared demolitions. The presence of prepared demolitions significantly complicated their assault options and suggested that enemy forces had advance warning of potential coalition operations. IED emplacements required time and expertise, indicating sophisticated preparation rather than reactive defensive measures. Williams intercepted communications indicating that Taliban forces were implementing counter-surveillance procedures against coalition reconnaissance assets. Enemy forces appear to be aware of overhead surveillance and are taking measures to conceal their strength and defensive preparations. Patterson observed additional thermal signatures that suggested enemy sniper teams were moving into overwatch positions around the compound perimeter. Sir, multiple two-man teams establishing elevated positions with clear fields of fire over the compound approaches. Enemy counter-sniper capabilities appear significant. Morrison faced the difficult decision of whether to proceed with their assault against a more heavily defended target than anticipated or to abort their mission and recommend enhanced intelligence gathering before attempting another operation. Hassan al-Kazemi was a high-value target whose elimination would significantly disrupt Taliban operations, but the tactical situation had become far more complex and dangerous than planned. Chun monitored communications from their command center and noted increasing concerns about the developing tactical picture. Sir, command is requesting updated assessment of enemy strength and defensive capabilities before authorizing assault commencement. The request from their command center reflected growing awareness that the intelligence picture had been incomplete or that enemy forces had significantly improved their capabilities since the last assessment. Either possibility would require careful reconsideration of their operational approach. Rodriguez conducted final checks of his medical equipment while maintaining surveillance of enemy defensive positions. Sir, casualty treatment options remain available, but evacuation routes are becoming increasingly compromised by enemy positioning. Sullivan prepared his demolition charges for immediate deployment while studying the evolving defensive picture around their target compound. Multiple breach points remain viable, but enemy demolitions will significantly complicate assault routes and timing. Williams continued monitoring enemy communications while preparing for potential cultural and linguistic challenges during their assault operation. Enemy coordination continues to improve, suggesting command and control capabilities that exceed normal Taliban standards. Patterson made final adjustments to his rifle scope while calculating engagement priorities for the multiple targets now visible around the compound perimeter. Sir, enemy sniper positions are occupied and oriented toward likely assault routes. Counter-sniper operations will be required before assault commencement. The tactical situation had evolved far beyond their original planning assumptions, creating challenges that would test every aspect of their training and equipment. Morrison's team was among the most capable special operations units in the world, but they were now facing an enemy that appeared to be better prepared and more sophisticated than any Taliban force they had previously encountered. The next few minutes would determine whether their carefully planned operation could adapt to the unexpected tactical realities they were discovering, or whether they would be forced to abort their mission and allow Hassan al-Kazemi to escape justice once again. The stakes were rising rapidly as both sides prepared for what appeared to be an inevitable confrontation in the darkness of the Afghan wilderness. The first shots cracked through the pre-dawn air like thunder, shattering the tactical silence that Morrison's team had maintained during their approach. What had been planned as a precise surgical strike instantly transformed into a deadly firefight as Taliban forces opened fire from concealed positions that had somehow detected their presence despite all their careful preparation and advanced equipment. Morrison felt a familiar surge of adrenaline as bullets began snapping past his position, striking the rocks around him and sending stone fragments flying through the air. His years of combat experience kicked in immediately as he assessed the tactical situation and began coordinating his team's response to the unexpected enemy contact. Contact front. Multiple enemy positions. Morrison shouted into his microphone as he brought his rifle to bear on muzzle flashes that were erupting from rocks and vegetation around the compound perimeter. The enemy had clearly been prepared for their assault, suggesting either intelligence compromise or sophisticated counter-surveillance capabilities that exceeded normal Taliban standards. Chun dove for cover behind a boulder as automatic weapon fire swept across his position. The distinctive sound of AK-47 rifles mixing with a deeper roar of machine gun fire from multiple directions. His communication equipment was crucial for coordinating with their command center and calling for fire support, but the intense enemy fire was making it difficult to maintain his radio position. Command, this is Alpha Team. We are under heavy enemy fire at the target location. Chun transmitted while pressing himself against the rock that was providing his only protection from the withering fire that Taliban forces were directing at their positions. Rodriguez immediately began moving toward a better defensive position while returning fire at enemy muzzle flashes that were visible through his night vision equipment. His medical training had prepared him for treating casualties under fire, but the intensity of enemy resistance suggested that they would likely face multiple wounded team members before this engagement was resolved. Multiple wounded enemy fighters visible in the compound, Rodriguez called out as he engaged targets with precision rifle fire. But their defensive positions are well prepared and expertly positioned for maximum effectiveness. Sullivan quickly assessed the tactical situation and began preparing explosive charges that could eliminate enemy strongpoints or create covered routes for team movement. His demolition expertise would be crucial for breaking the stalemate that was developing as both sides exchanged fire from prepared positions. Enemy positions include prepared bunkers and fighting holes. Sullivan reported while placing charges that would eliminate a machine gun position that was pinning down the assault team. This level of preparation suggests advanced intelligence about our operation. Williams used his intelligence training to analyze enemy tactics and communication patterns while engaging targets with accurate rifle fire. His linguistic abilities allowed him to understand enemy coordination efforts, which provided crucial tactical intelligence about their intentions and capabilities. Enemy forces are using sophisticated communication procedures and coordinated fire control. Williams observed while engaging a sniper who was attempting to target their team from an elevated position. This is definitely not a typical Taliban unit. Patterson had immediately shifted his sniper rifle toward the highest priority threats, systematically engaging enemy fighters who were attempting to coordinate the defensive response. His precision marksmanship was crucial for disrupting enemy command and control while protecting his teammates from targeted fire. Multiple enemy snipers in overwatch positions. Patterson reported while engaging targets with carefully aimed shots. They're using proper military tactics and equipment that exceeds normal insurgent capabilities. The firefight intensified as both sides sought tactical advantages in the rocky terrain around the compound. Morrison realized that his team was facing a force that had been specifically prepared to counter special operations tactics, suggesting either advance warning or training by professional military advisors. Chin successfully established contact with their command center and began requesting immediate fire support from available assets. Command, Alpha Team is engaged with a heavily armed and well-trained enemy force. Request immediate air support and reinforcement options. The response from their command center was immediate but concerning. Alpha Team, be advised that weather conditions are preventing immediate air support deployment. Apache helicopter support is grounded due to cloud cover at your location. Rodriguez moved between defensive positions while treating a grazing wound on Sullivan's arm that had been caused by enemy fire. His medical skills were being tested under the most challenging conditions as he provided trauma care while continuing to engage enemy targets. Sullivan's hit, but still operational. Rodriguez reported while applying emergency bandaging. Enemy marksmanship is significantly better than typical Taliban standards. They're targeting specific team members based on equipment and positioning. Sullivan continued his demolition operations despite his wound, successfully eliminating an enemy machine gun position with a precisely placed explosive charge. The detonation created a momentary lull in enemy fire that allowed the team to reposition to more advantageous defensive positions. Enemy strongpoint eliminated, but they're repositioning to alternate firing positions. Sullivan called out while preparing additional charges. These fighters have backup plans and alternate defensive positions already prepared. Williams intercepted enemy communications that revealed the sophistication of the force they were facing. The Taliban fighters were using military terminology and coordination procedures that indicated professional training beyond anything normally encountered in rural Afghanistan. Enemy communications indicate foreign training and possibly foreign advisors. Williams reported while engaging targets. They're using Russian military terminology mixed with Pashto, suggesting Spetsnaz or similar special operations training. Patterson continued eliminating high-value targets with precision fire, but enemy snipers were proving to be formidable opponents who understood advanced marksmanship techniques and tactical positioning. The skill level was far beyond anything his team had encountered during previous operations in Afghanistan. Enemy counter-sniper capabilities are exceptional. Patterson observed while engaging a particularly skilled opponent. They're using military-grade equipment and professional techniques. This is definitely not a normal Taliban operation. Morrison coordinated his team's defensive efforts while trying to identify Hassan al-Kazemi among the enemy fighters. Their primary mission objective remained the elimination of the high-value target, but the unexpected resistance was making target identification extremely difficult in the chaos of combat. Chun received updated intelligence from their command center that shed light on their tactical situation. Sir, command reports that recent intercepts indicate Iranian Quds force advisors have been training Taliban units in advanced tactics. Our target appears to have been expecting special operations assault. The information explained the sophisticated resistance they were encountering, but also confirmed that their intelligence picture had been seriously compromised. Enemy forces had not only been prepared for their assault, but had been specifically trained to counter American special operations techniques. Rodriguez continued providing medical support while engaging enemy targets, but his assessment of their tactical situation was becoming increasingly concerning. Sir, we're facing a prepared enemy force with superior numbers and defensive advantages. Recommend immediate extraction before casualties become critical. Sullivan's demolition efforts had eliminated several enemy positions, but Taliban fighters continued to appear from concealed locations that hadn't been detected during their reconnaissance. Enemy force strength significantly exceeds intelligence estimates. They have prepared positions that were completely invisible to surveillance. Williams provided crucial intelligence about enemy intentions based on intercepted communications. Enemy forces are attempting to surround our position and cut off extraction routes. They're implementing a coordinated encirclement strategy. Patterson's counter-sniper operations have been successful, but enemy marksmen continue to engage from new positions with sophisticated equipment and training. Multiple enemy sniper teams with advanced optics and professional training. They're coordinating fields of fire to maximize effectiveness. The tactical situation continued deteriorating as enemy forces implemented increasingly sophisticated assault techniques against Morrison's team. What had begun as a special operations raid against a Taliban compound had evolved into a complex battle against professional soldiers using advanced tactics and equipment. Chun struggled to maintain communications with their command center as enemy forces attempted to jam their radio frequencies using electronic warfare techniques that exceeded typical insurgent capabilities. Sir, enemy forces are implementing electronic countermeasures against our communication systems. They have sophisticated jamming equipment. Rodriguez assessed the team's medical situation while continuing to engage enemy targets. 2 team members had sustained wounds, and their defensive position was becoming increasingly precarious as enemy forces continued their coordinated assault. Sir, we need immediate extraction or reinforcement. Current position is not sustainable against this level of enemy pressure. Sullivan's explosive charges had created temporary advantages, but enemy forces were adapting their tactics and repositioning to counter his demolition efforts. Enemy forces are learning from our techniques and adjusting their defensive strategy. They have professional military leadership coordinating their response. Williams continued intercepting enemy communications that revealed the true scope of the force they were facing. "Sir, enemy radio traffic indicates this is a deliberate ambush operation. They were specifically waiting for American Special Operations Forces." Patterson's precision fire had eliminated multiple enemy targets, but the opposition continued to demonstrate professional military capabilities that suggested extensive foreign training and support. Enemy sniper teams are using coordinated fire missions and mutual support techniques. This is definitely a professional military operation. Morrison realized that his team had walked into a carefully prepared trap designed specifically to counter American special operations techniques. The enemy had superior numbers, prepared defensive positions, professional training, and advanced intelligence about their mission. Their only hope for survival would require adapting their tactics to the unexpected reality they now faced. Chen received a communication from their command center that provided both hope and additional challenges. "Sir, command reports that a quick reaction force helicopter is attempting to reach our position despite weather conditions. Estimated time of arrival is 15 minutes if they can navigate the cloud cover." The information meant that help was potentially on the way, but 15 minutes seemed like an eternity when facing professional enemy forces who were systematically implementing assault tactics designed to eliminate their defensive position. Morrison had to find a way to keep his team alive long enough for extraction to become possible. Rodriguez continued treating wounded team members while maintaining defensive fire, but their ammunition supplies were being depleted rapidly during the intense firefight. "Sir, ammunition consumption is approaching critical levels. We need to consider conservation measures or alternative tactical approaches." Sullivan prepared his remaining explosive charges for maximum effectiveness, while considering how they could break contact with enemy forces long enough to reach an extraction point. "Sir, I can create a diversion with my remaining charges, but we'll need precise timing and coordination to execute a successful withdrawal." Williams monitored enemy communications for any indication of their tactical plans while continuing to engage targets. Enemy forces are discussing assault timing and coordination. They're planning a coordinated attack on our position within the next few minutes. Patterson continued his precision engagement of enemy targets while calculating fields of fire for covering a potential extraction movement. "Sir, I can provide covering fire for team movement, but enemy counter-sniper capabilities will limit my effectiveness during daylight hours." The intensity of the firefight continued increasing as both sides committed additional resources to what had become a battle for survival in the unforgiving landscape of Afghanistan. Morrison's team was fighting for their lives against an enemy that had been specifically prepared to counter their techniques, creating the most challenging tactical situation they had ever encountered. As dawn broke over the Afghan mountains, the true scope of their desperate situation became apparent. They were heavily outnumbered, low on ammunition, facing professional enemy forces, and trapped in defensive positions with limited extraction options. The next few minutes would determine whether America's elite warriors could overcome impossible odds or whether their mission would end in disaster in the remote wilderness of Helmand Province. The sound of approaching helicopter rotors in the distance provided hope, but enemy forces were preparing their final assault to eliminate the SEAL team before rescue could arrive. Morrison prepared his team for what could be their last stand, knowing that everything would depend on their training, their courage, and perhaps a miracle in the deadly landscape of Afghanistan. The situation had reached its breaking point. Morrison's team was pinned down, low on ammunition, and facing what appeared to be their final moments as professional Taliban fighters prepared for a coordinated assault that would overwhelm their defensive position. The sound of approaching helicopters offered hope, but enemy forces were moving to eliminate the SEAL team before rescue could arrive. Then, from the murky waters of the nearby river, something extraordinary happened that would change everything. A single rifle shot cracked through the morning air with devastating precision, and The Taliban machine gunner who had been directing the most effective fire against Morrison's team suddenly slumped forward over his weapon. The shot had come from an impossible angle, somewhere near the riverbank where no coalition forces were supposed to be positioned. What the hell was that? Chun whispered into his microphone as the enemy fire pattern suddenly shifted, creating a momentary lull in the intense firefight that had been raging for the past 20 minutes. Before anyone could respond, another impossibly accurate shot eliminated a second Taliban fighter who had been coordinating the assault from a concealed position among the rocks. The precision and timing suggested a marksman with extraordinary skill operating from a location that shouldn't have been tactically viable. Morrison scanned the area through his binoculars, trying to identify the source of the unexpected supporting fire. Through the morning mist rising from the river, he caught a glimpse of movement near a partially submerged log, approximately 400 meters from their position. "Ghost, are you seeing this?" Morrison called to Patterson, who was their designated sniper and best qualified to assess the marksmanship they were witnessing. Patterson adjusted his scope toward the riverbank and focused on the area where the shots appeared to be originating. What he saw defied everything he thought he knew about combat operations in Afghanistan. "Sir, I've got eyes on a single shooter near the riverbank," Patterson reported, his voice filled with disbelief. "Appears to be a local teenager, maybe 16 years old, with what looks like a modified hunting rifle. But his marksmanship is absolutely phenomenal." As if to emphasize Patterson's assessment, another precise shot eliminated a Taliban sniper who had been attempting to target the American position from an elevated rock formation. The young shooter was systematically dismantling the enemy's defensive coordination with shots that would have challenged the most experienced military marksman. Rodriguez paused his medical treatment of wounded team members to observe the unexpected development. "Sir, whoever that kid is, he's single-handedly disrupting the enemy assault plan. Their coordination is falling apart as he eliminates key personnel." The mysterious young sniper continued his devastating engagement, each shot carefully selected to maximize tactical impact on the Taliban forces. Machine gunners, spotters, and squad leaders fell with mechanical precision as the teenager demonstrated marksmanship skills that seemed impossible for someone his age. Sullivan watched in amazement as the enemy forces began showing signs of confusion and disorganization. "Sir, the kid's not just shooting randomly. He's targeting specific roles within their unit structure. Someone taught him advanced tactical principles." Williams intercepted enemy communications that revealed the psychological impact the unexpected sniper fire was having on Taliban morale. "Sir, enemy radio traffic indicates they're completely confused about the source of the sniper fire. They're starting to panic because they can't locate the shooter." Shin received an updated communication from their command center that provided crucial context for what they were witnessing. "Sir, command has been monitoring the situation through drone footage. They confirm a single local shooter engaging enemy forces with extraordinary effectiveness. The young sniper's intervention had created exactly the tactical opportunity that Morrison's team needed to break contact with enemy forces and move toward their extraction point. But Morrison found himself facing an unexpected moral dilemma about leaving behind someone who had risked his life to save American soldiers. Patterson continued observing the mysterious marksman through his scope, noting details that revealed the sophistication of a young shooter's technique. "Sir, this kid is using advanced breathing techniques, proper trigger control, and tactical movement between firing positions. Someone with serious military training taught him these skills." Rodriguez completed his treatment of wounded team members and began preparing the team for movement toward their extraction point. "Sir, the enemy confusion is creating a window of opportunity, but we need to move immediately before they recover their tactical coordination." Sullivan gathered his remaining demolition equipment and prepared to provide covering explosions that would mask their movement toward the helicopter landing zone. "Sir, I can create diversions that will allow us to withdraw, but we're abandoning someone who just saved our lives." Williams continued monitoring enemy communications, noting increasing panic and disorganization among Taliban forces as their casualties mounted from the precise sniper fire. Enemy units are requesting reinforcements and reporting an unknown sniper with exceptional capabilities. Their operational cohesion is deteriorating rapidly. Morrison made the decision to attempt contact with the mysterious young marksman who had intervened so effectively in their tactical situation. Using hand signals that any trained sniper would recognize, he attempted to communicate across the distance separating their positions. Chun observed the interaction through his binoculars and provided commentary on the developing communication. "Sir, the kid is responding to your hand signals with proper military acknowledgments. He definitely has formal training in tactical communication procedures." The young sniper responded to Morrison's signals with a series of precise gestures that indicated his willingness to provide continued covering fire during their extraction movement. His tactical understanding of their situation was evident in the appropriateness of his responses. Patterson noted additional details about the mysterious marksman that revealed the extent of his training and preparation. "Sir, his shooting position is expertly camouflaged, and he's using natural terrain features to mask his location from enemy observation. This level of tactical sophistication is remarkable for someone his age." Rodriguez completed his assessment of team medical status and confirmed that all personnel were capable of movement despite their wounds. "Sir, all team members are mobile and ready for extraction movement. The sniper's intervention has given us the tactical window we needed." Sullivan prepared explosive charges that would create smoke and confusion to mask their withdrawal from their current defensive positions. "Sir, on your command, I can initiate diversionary explosions that will allow us to move toward the landing zone under concealment." Williams intercepted communications indicating that Taliban forces were attempting to locate and eliminate the mysterious sniper who was disrupting their operations. Enemy forces are redirecting resources toward finding the sniper position, which further reduces pressure on our extraction movement. Chin received confirmation from their command center that extraction helicopters were approaching their secondary landing zone and would be available for pickup within 5 minutes. "Sir, extraction birds are inbound to secondary LZ. We have a narrow window for successful evacuation." Morrison coordinated the tactical movement of his team while maintaining visual contact with the young sniper who had saved their lives. The moral complexity of the situation weighed heavily on his mind as he balanced mission requirements against personal obligation. Patterson provided covering fire as the team began moving toward their extraction point, noting that the mysterious marksman continued his precise engagement of enemy targets to facilitate their withdrawal. "Sir, the kid is adjusting his fire to support our movement. He's reading the tactical situation and adapting his engagement priorities accordingly." Rodriguez moved with the team while maintaining medical readiness for additional casualties during their extraction movement. "Sir, the sniper's continued engagement is keeping enemy heads down and preventing effective fire on our position during movement." Sullivan triggered diversionary explosions that created smoke and confusion while masking the sound of approaching extraction helicopters. "Sir, enemy forces are responding to the diversions, but the sniper continues eliminating anyone who attempts to organize pursuit." Williams monitored enemy communications during their movement and noted increasing desperation among Taliban units as their casualties continued mounting from the precise sniper fire. Enemy morale is collapsing as they face an opponent they cannot locate or effectively counter. Chun maintained communication with the extraction helicopters while coordinating their approach to the secondary landing zone. "Sir, extraction birds report they can see our position and are beginning their landing approach. Estimated touchdown in 2 minutes." The extraction helicopters appeared through the morning mist like mechanical angels, their rotor wash creating additional concealment as they settled onto the rocky landing zone. Morrison's team moved quickly toward the aircraft while the mysterious young sniper continued providing covering fire from his concealed position near the river. Patterson took one final look at their unexpected savior through his scope before boarding the extraction helicopter. "Sir, the kid is still engaging targets and covering our extraction. His marksmanship continues to be absolutely phenomenal under pressure." Rodriguez conducted final medical assessments of team members during the helicopter boarding process, while noting that the sniper's intervention had prevented what could have been catastrophic casualties. "Sir, without that kid's intervention, we would have faced multiple Kia and WIA casualties during the enemy assault. Sullivan completed the loading of his demolition equipment while observing the continued precision fire that was keeping enemy forces suppressed during their extraction. Sir, his tactical understanding and execution are at professional military levels. Someone invested serious time in training that young man. Williams made final attempts to intercept enemy communications during their extraction, noting complete tactical breakdown among Taliban forces as their leadership continued falling to precise sniper fire. Enemy units are in complete disarray and unable to coordinate effective response to our extraction. Chun maintained communication with their command center during the helicopter departure, providing initial after-action reports about the unexpected intervention that had saved their mission. Command, be advised that local sniper provided crucial fire support during enemy contact. Recommend investigation and potential contact with this individual. As their extraction helicopter climbed away from the battlefield, Morrison looked back toward the river where a 16-year-old Afghan boy had demonstrated extraordinary courage and skill to save the lives of American soldiers. The mysterious marksman had disappeared back into the landscape as suddenly as he had emerged, leaving behind only the evidence of his phenomenal marksmanship and tactical expertise. Patterson continued observing the battlefield through the helicopter window as they departed, noting that enemy forces were still unable to locate or effectively counter the young sniper who had single-handedly disrupted their assault. Sir, even with us extracted, they still can't find that kid. His field craft and concealment skills are absolutely exceptional. Rodriguez reflected on the medical implications of their encounter while treating final wounds during the helicopter flight. Sir, that young man's intervention prevented what could have been a catastrophic loss of American lives. His timing and precision were absolutely perfect. Sullivan considered the tactical implications of what they had witnessed during their flight back to base. Sir, someone invested considerable time and expertise in training that teenager. His knowledge of advanced tactics and marksmanship fundamentals suggests professional military instruction. Williams analyzed the cultural and intelligence implications of their encounter during the return flight. Sir, the fact that a local teenager was willing to risk his life to save American soldiers suggests complex social dynamics that our intelligence assessments may have overlooked. Chun coordinated with their command center regarding follow-up intelligence gathering about their mysterious savior. Sir, command is requesting detailed debriefing about the sniper intervention. They want to understand who trained him and why he chose to help American forces. Morrison spent the return flight grappling with the realization that a 16-year-old Afghan boy had demonstrated more courage, skill, and tactical sophistication than many professional soldiers he had served alongside during his military career. The young man's intervention had transformed certain defeat into successful extraction, saving the lives of America's most elite warriors through extraordinary marksmanship and tactical understanding. The mysterious teenager's story would become legend among special operations forces, representing the unexpected alliances and remarkable individuals that could emerge from the complex landscape of Afghanistan. His precise shooting and tactical expertise had turned the tide of battle when America's finest warriors faced overwhelming odds, demonstrating that heroism and skill could appear from the most unlikely sources. As their helicopter disappeared into the Afghan sky, carrying Morrison's team back to safety, the young sniper had already vanished back into the local population, his identity unknown but his impact unforgettable. The 16-year-old marksman who had emerged from the river to save an entire SEAL team would become one of the most remarkable and mysterious figures in the annals of special operations history. Years later, military instructors would tell the story of the teenage sniper who had appeared from nowhere to save America's elite warriors, demonstrating that extraordinary courage and skill could emerge from unexpected places when the stakes were highest. The young man's precise marksmanship and tactical sophistication had provided a crucial reminder that in the complex landscape of modern warfare, allies and heroes could appear from the most unlikely sources. Morrison never learned the identity of the remarkable teenager who had saved his team's lives that morning in Afghanistan, but he never forgot the lesson that extraordinary individuals could emerge from unexpected circumstances to change the course of history through courage, skill, and perfect timing when it mattered most.